If you see a flight deck person, if you see a captain sleeping in a cabin, would you start to freak out? Well, let's talk about it. Welcome. Hello YouTube, my name is Victor, I'm a flight attendant, and every week I share with you some tips and tricks on how to travel in better conditions, but also a little bit what's happening behind the scene in the airline industry. This week there's been quite some dramas and some talks about a situation that happened recently on United Airlines. So here's a story. This United plane is flying between somewhere in North America, somewhere in Europe, I don't know where, so it's at least around 7 hours flight, and one of the flight deck, actually all of them but one by one, left the flight deck, removed the uniform in the toilets, put a t-shirt and went to sleep in the business class seat for an hour and a half, and they took turn. And it seemed that it was annoying some passengers. So let's talk about it. Let's see a little bit what's the situation, what's the procedure. So first thing you need to know, we've got at least 2 pilots. Quite often on long-haul flight there will be a third one and even though sometimes a fourth one. And why do we have them? There's not 4 people flying the plane at the same time. Usually 2 of them will do it, and then the others will be a support, will be able to do some extra checks with takeoff and landing, but in cruise altitude we only need 2. Actually we need 1 plus the autopilot, but regardless of that, let's say we need 2. The others are here so we can fly longer because we have more people that can actually rest. So it's important that flight deck, like flight attendant, go on rest because we want to avoid fatigue. Fatigue is actually could be quite dangerous. If as a flight attendant I'm fatigued, it's not a big issue. If I gave you the wrong meal, give you the beef instead of chicken, it's not the end of the world, we can fix it hopefully. But if a pilot makes a mistake, again, it's quite unlikely because they got tons of checklists and they check each other and everything, but if they made a mistake, that would be a little bit more dangerous than just having chicken instead of beef. So that's why they need to have rest. At all times, there's going to be at least 2 pilots on the flight deck. So usually in the crew list, you've got the captain, you've got the first officer, second officer, and sometime another second officer. At least 2 of them will be operating the flight and in commands of the aircraft at all times. Sometimes, let's say it's a flight with only 2 pilots, let's say it's a domestic flight, and one of them needs to go to the toilets. Well, there's no toilets on the flight deck, thank God, would be any privacy. So they call us, one of us will go on the flight deck, we'll sit, we have an observer seat, we not use their seat, we'll sit down there, and then this captain will go and use the toilet, and then come back, take the commands again, and then we get out. So one person can actually fly the plane. So in this situation, there was always 2 pilots, they took turns, so one of them will take rest. On many planes, and all the planes that I fly, we have actually crew rest. So we have a flight attendant crew rest, and then we have a flight deck crew rest, which actually has got 2 bunk beds. But some older aircraft may not have this. United Airlines is a huge, massive airline. It's not easy for them to renew their whole fleet. When you have a small airline with only 20 big planes, well, you can replace them faster than when you have like 200 of them. So maybe they were flying an older aircraft which is not fitted with crew rest, and which is fine. We still need to give rest to pilots and flight attendants. So for pilots, I guess what the airline's done is they blocked 1 seat in business class and make it available for the flight deck crew. That's that easy. So there was a lot of concerns about this captain being sleeping in the cabin and going to the toilets and remove his uniform and put a t-shirt. Well, actually I don't know why there's such a big fuss about it, around it. There's 2 reasons why I want to change. First, it's more comfortable to sleep in a t-shirt. I always remove my shirt when I'm going to rest, and then you don't want your shirts to be wrinkled after sleeping in it, so there's no iron on the plane. So that's the first reason. Second, if I see actually a captain sleeping in business class in his uniform, I was wondering what this guy is doing here, and I start to ask question. Of course, there's going to be a flight attendant galley who can help you and explain it, but if he's actually changing the t-shirt with the blanket, you won't know he's a captain because you probably haven't seen him before. So less people will ask questions, but it's at no point there's a security threat around that. Rest is super important for us. Keep in mind our body is always in between different time zones, so our body clock is completely messed up. Our sleeping pattern is already messed up. We are shift workers, so one day I'll fly to Singapore, I'll start my day at midnight, so I have to sleep during the afternoon. Some other days I'll start after my takeoff at 7 AM, so I have to be at the airport at 5:30, so I have to wake up around 3:30. So our schedule will change from one week to another, and that's why we use a lot of time to rest at home. We have some time in between flights, and in destination we actually there to rest. Sometime, of course, we'll get out the hotel, might go for a walk. If we have a longer journey, a longer stay, we might do a bit of shopping or visiting on tourism, but the main purpose is actually to rest, recover, so we can take the plane back home. So it's important that we sleep, and if we can sleep on the plane, well, if it's a long flight, it will be a little bit better when we arrive or for the second service. Some other comments around the situation was around the fact like they were comparing that to find a police officer sleeping in his car. I'm sorry, it's a very different story. If I go in a small street and I see a police car parked and a police officer sleeping in it, I have no idea if he's actually supposed to be on break and sleeping, or allowed to sleep, or supposed to be working. When I'm in a plane, the plane is flying, I know there's always going to be 2 people on the flight deck, the minimum. So if one of them is sleeping, well, good for him. I don't see where the issue is. So again, it's a very different story. I don't know why there were so many articles and comments around that situation. If you're concerned about the situation, please feel free to share it in the comments. I would be interested to read it. And otherwise, I'll see you next week. If you'd like to subscribe to my channel, I'm Victor Travel on YouTube, or you can find me on Instagram television under Victor Travel. You might already be there. And then feel free to give a thumb up and subscribe. And yeah, I'll see you next week. Bye.